If you clicked on this video, you've probably been in that situation where you've spent hours upon hours, days upon days, at the library or your desk, reading through the textbook, reading through your notes, and getting ready for your upcoming exam. Soon you're feeling great, knowing that you've done the hard work and the long hours and feel that you should soon be rewarded with that great exam result. Then, in class, when you get your paper back, you get slapped in the face with an absolute whoppingly mark, while smart monkey who barely studied at all gets 99%. How the did this happen? If that's the case, you've come to the right place. In this video, through my exam experience and learnings in high school and in university, I'll explain how I've learned to study smart, dramatically reducing my study hours and study load, while still maintaining good grades and good marks in exams. And this, I undoubtedly believe, is the best feeling a student can have. So firstly, it's a no-brainer that the study time and the grades that you achieve are positively correlated. That is, as one increases, so too should the other. If you only studied 5 minutes for an exam, you'll obviously do a lot worse than if you had studied 5 days for it. But what if I told you this correlation isn't linear as some of you might expect? In fact, if you study smart and study effectively, it's a line that rises sharply initially and then slowly becomes flatter. Kind of like the views on every one of my YouTube videos. So now, as you can see, to get a decent but not amazing grade, you no longer have to study as much as you used to. And what if I also told you it was entirely possible to shift your entire study curve up? Now, as you can see, with the same amount of study, instead of a decent mark, you can get an amazing mark. So how do you make this happen? In summary, the first element, where the curve is non-linear, comes down to initially high but decreasing marginal productivity, which I will explain today. The second element, which causes the shift of the curve, comes down to external factors, which I'll explain how you can exploit these in a later episode. So to make sure you are studying in the most efficient way possible, and that your own study curve is as steep as possible in the beginning, you need to make sure that the study tasks that you do are the most important and useful ones that will help the most when it comes to exam performance. As George Orwell would say, all tasks are created equal, but some tasks are more equal than others. Since the time you have is limited, the focus should be on completing study tasks that have a higher marginal productivity. That is, will increase your grade significantly relative to the amount of time and effort you have to spend. First, we have to ask, why are you studying? Unless you are one of the few who actually enjoy studying for the sake of higher learning, then the reason for studying is probably to get good grades, for the purposes of getting into your dream college, dream job, or just passing that subject to appease your Asian parents. By establishing the objective as getting good grades, rather than studying for the sake of studying, we can now decide which tasks to focus on. The first task is making the most use of your class time. During class time and tutorials where you have the teacher support available is the best time to make sure you fully understand the course content. Make sure you aren't falling behind in class and the content you have to learn, so you should use this opportunity to ask questions to your teachers and make sure there aren't any gaps at all in your knowledge. This actually requires very little additional work and effort, since everyone is already going to be spending that time in class anyways, but you're just making the most out of it. At most, occasionally, you only have to spend an extra 15 minutes a day, only if you found there was something difficult in the stuff that you learned during that day, revise it at night, and then bring it back to the teacher the next day to clarify any doubts and make sure you fully understand the topic. Since in class, what's taught later on builds on essentials taught in the beginning, it's essential you don't fall behind. There are no excuses for this, and you'll only be saving yourself from a world of pain and hurt where you have to learn a heap of content for the very first time, very close to the start of an exam. And what's worse is you no longer have the support of the teacher available during that class time to clarify any issues you might have and push you through the bits that you are struggling with. The next thing I always do for studying effectively and that will help me get those good grades is doing past paper exams. There are so many benefits to doing past paper exams, and these are: firstly, they give you a good idea of the exam style, timing, and difficulty, so you have a good idea of what to expect in the actual exam. Secondly, you can see where you are at the moment, and it helps you figure out how much more you need to study. Thirdly, there's likely to be repeated or very similar questions between the past paper exams and the actual exam. And by making sure you'll know how to do these is just like getting free marks in the exam. Number 4, it gives you more certainty and helps build your confidence, as you've been in a similar situation now of what you'll be experiencing in the actual exam. Number 5, by doing these papers and then checking the solutions and going through your own answers, you can find out your weakness areas and see what you need to be focusing on before the start of the actual exam. Finally, by doing past papers, you are practicing active recall, which is one of the best ways for better content retention leading up to the actual exam. So with all the benefits of these past papers, there's no doubt you should be doing at least a few of these for every single one of your exams. However, do remember these are very time consuming and the benefits will become slightly less and less each time you do the next one. So generally what I do is I do about 5 past papers for big major exams I want to get about 90% on, and for smaller, maybe less important exams where I only might want 70 to 80%, then I might just do 2 or 3 of these past papers. The third task I'd recommend focusing on is a bit controversial, and that is to do passive learning activities rather than spending all your time on active recall.
And just a quick disclaimer here, it's Dineth, and as a medical student I can say that this sort of strategy only really works for subjects where you don't have to memorize a lot of content.
Essentially what I do for passive learning is just using a set of notes or material that is succinct and easy to understand and scanning and reading through it while making sure it all generally makes sense in my head. This goes against what a lot of smart people would recommend, for example Ali Abdaal. But the reason why I choose to do passive learning instead of active recall again comes back to the mentality of studying for exams and doing well in those, and not for the sake of actually learning. This means you just need to be able to remember the stuff you are studying for a short time up to the exam, and then afterwards you can just forget all about it. As such, a shallow memory of the content is sufficient for getting by. Furthermore, you will already be doing some active learning when you're doing those past papers, so I don't believe there's any need to use it to excess when simply just revising your notes and your content. You should do this especially for topics and areas you are already strong at. Since you already have a good grasp of the content, you don't need to waste time doing it all over again in such a detailed manner. And if you followed step 1 properly, and you made sure to get a good grasp of all the material the first time when you're learning it in the classroom, with the support of the teacher available, you should be able to get away with just using passive review to make sure that the content is now fresh again in your heads, at least enough for the few days leading up to the actual exam. This is going to save you a heap of time, as instead of making and summarizing your own notes, highlighting the textbook, and testing your understanding at every step, you just need to find a set of succinct, easy to understand notes and scan through it. The final task that will help you the most with increasing that marginal productivity is just to focus on your weakness areas. These can be in the form of content topics, for example, differentiation in maths, or process weaknesses, such as careless calculation errors in maths, or getting a tired wrist too quickly when you're writing. These are areas where there's still a lot of room for improvement, and putting in some effort here offers that higher marginal productivity than if you were to focus on the things you're already good at. So those are the 4 key tasks that I use to study smart and study less while still maintaining good grades, whether that be in high school or in college and university. This video has been focused on bending that study curve by telling you what to prioritize and which tasks are the most important and useful ones that you should be focusing on when studying for exams. In my next episodes on the Study Smart, Study Hard series, we'll be having a look at how you can steepen that entire curve by doing the same tasks that you're doing, but now reducing the amount of time that you need to spend to complete them through study efficiency and focus tips. Then in the next video, I'll go over how you can shift that entire study curve up by exploiting and taking advantage of various external factors such as teacher preferences, pre-exam and post-exam routines, as well as exam mindsets. I hope you all learned something new in this video and something that you can apply to your own study routine that you haven't learned elsewhere. If you did, then make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel to not miss out on any future episodes in the Study Smart series. Also, let me know in the comments below which of these tasks you spend the most time focusing on. As always, take care, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.